Our phones are ringing with many invites and many requests to follow our candidates and drill them with more questions. Well, the lack of adequate funding has troubled the community of Crediton, and Mr. McClinchey has faced the voters of this community, and we did not turn down this invitation. At first, we were informed that more candidates would be present, but once we arrived, only the Liberal candidate was there facing the public with some of their straight questions. So observe the democratic process in action, where people play a vital part beforehand in assuring that they have their concerns addressed. Here is your complete report from Crediton.
First of all, I would like to welcome Greg McClinchey. He is the Liberal candidate for the upcoming election. Welcome to Crediton. Thank you for coming. Appreciate you being here. The reason that we brought him here is because we have a very serious situation in Crediton and Centralia. In Crediton, I'm just going to tell my story, give Mr. McClinchey a chance to talk, and then we'll allow everybody to have their chance to talk. In 2006, the bridge here in town had construction on it. Our roadway was blocked, well, down to one lane. That scared a lot of our traffic away from Crediton. In 2007, April 2nd actually, in 2007, we had the sewer projects begun in both villages. Lucky Centralia, they got theirs done in about 2.5 months, at least down to the point of having smoother roads than Crediton than what Crediton has even to this day. June of 2008, our construction was done in Crediton with outstanding top coat pavement being done next year. About 2 weeks after that, our bridge was brought down to one lane. When we asked what was going on, all of a sudden there's cracks in the foundation or in the structure of it. And in November the 11th of this coming year, it will be shut down. So we've dealt with one lane again from June until now. November 10th, I should say, the bridge will be shut down and there will be construction underneath. I really hope that nobody has a fire in their home or in any building in Crediton, because I've already been informed that they probably won't be able to save the building. So everybody be very careful between now and the time that road or that bridge gets opened again. The sewer project for myself, I have 2 properties here in town. It will cost me $30,000 if I could pay it off. Well, after 3 years of poor business, I'm sorry, I could not pay it off. I had to put it on the 20-year debenture at double the amount. I'm lucky enough to live in Hensel, so I get another $8,000, almost $9,000 to pay there. This year, I cannot afford to hook up my gas bar to the sewer, even though I would like to. I'd like to comply, but I can't afford that. When the road closes in November, my business has no guarantee of how I can operate. The people in Crediton and Centralia have been very good over the last couple of years in supporting us. A lot of our traffic has gone different routes. I'm hoping I can stay alive until all of the construction is done. Then I know I can build my business up again, but with the road closed, that just might be the period on the end of the sentence that I'm done. I'm hoping not, but again, no guarantees. The debenture was forced on us. We had 6 business days to either pay in full or to put it on the debenture. A mortgage takes 2 weeks. If you have a line of credit and you're fortunate enough to have funding, wonderful. If you are a senior and that was your money to live on, I'm very sorry it's gone. If you had savings, they're probably gone. If you had to make a loan or take out a line of credit, you still have to pay. It doesn't matter what case you've gone through, we are all quite a bit poorer than what we were a couple of months ago. Mr. McClinchey, we need help. We've been begging for help. We've been screaming for help. We've got a lot of sympathy. We've got no help. We need funding. Simple as that. We need more funding. We need grants. We need this debenture to be looked at and to be reassessed. Right at this point, if you miraculously won the 649, we are not able to pay our debenture down unless you pay the entire amount, the entire 20 years worth of interest. We cannot pay it down. We cannot basically get out of debt unless you want to pay the full amount. Well, I'm sorry, $60,000 in my case is an awful lot of money for sewers, and I've got nothing to show for it except pipes in the ground, and I didn't put myself there. 2 months ago, I was virtually debt-free except for my mortgage in Hensel, and today I am $60,000 in debt for Crediton. That kind of makes you wonder why you're working so hard to get ahead. That's my story, and that's everybody that's in this room and everybody that lives in these two communities. It's their story too. I would like to let you comment on it, and then we'll allow everybody to make their own comments about their own situation, and I hope you share it with them, and hopefully we get help.
I was at an all-candidates meeting in Holmesville, I believe it was a week ago last Friday, and Dianne took the mic and raised the question about what's happening here. She asked all the candidates what their thoughts were and so on, and then she challenged us to come down and to do just this, to sit in front of you and hear what you have to say and probably get yelled at a little bit and all those things. And I took her up on that offer. I'm certainly hopeful, or I assume the other candidates are doing the same. I don't know that, but I would hope they would come down too. I was talking at the back to one gentleman, and he said to me, he's here to listen. Well, you know what? It's going to be a pretty quiet meeting then, because I'm here for the same reason. The one thing I'll promise you today is that when you leave here, your problem won't be solved. But I would like to think that we can begin with listening. I mean, I think one of the key purposes of an election campaign is to talk about the issues that are actually important to people. And I think sometimes we forget that. And I'm not meaning we as in you, we as in the people running for office forget that. And we talk about things that probably don't matter a whole hill of beans to the average person. So I wanted to come here today. I would like very much to listen to what you have to say. And my commitment to you is that if on the 14th I'm so fortunate to have the trust of the people in this riding, that I'll carry those messages forward. We'll come back and we'll be talking to you on a more individual basis and going over some of these things. Now, I want to be clear, I can't offer comments or commentary or judgments on what your local council is doing. That's something that's at a different level of government, and I think that that's something that you have to deal with in this community, at the community level. That being said, I am a big believer that the federal government can actually become involved in communities. A short time ago, I convened something called the Mayor's Council, and I know that probably doesn't mean anything to anybody here, but what it is we brought all the mayors together from all of the communities in our riding and said, well, we sent the media out of the room first and foremost, and we said to people, let's start talking about the real issues, what we really have to say, and let's work on solutions. Because I reject the notion outright. People too often say that the federal government talks to the provincial government talks to the municipality, and that's it. That's the current government's philosophy, and that's fine. That's their philosophy. I disagree with that. I see absolutely no reason why the federal government can't get involved in local issues. Why can't we, a federal government come and talk to somebody in this room or talk to a local government to solve the problems that are unique to this community? There's no problem with that. And that's the approach that I would like to take. So really, it's starting here today from my perspective. I know people here it's not starting, but from my perspective, I want to get into this. I'd like to hear a little bit more about what's happening. I know that the amounts you're being charged, for most, are insurmountable. I mean, I was walking around in Hensel the other day, and they've got the issue with water there as well. And the fellow said, he says, it's this much money, I can't pay that. Well, he's right. Whether it's $9,000 or $70,000 or $100 million. If it's beyond someone's ability to pay, it's beyond their ability to pay. It's that simple. And this is going to hit all of us hard, but it's going to hit certainly seniors on a fixed income hard. It's going to hit businesses hard. I mean, it's families hard. I mean, it hits all these people hard. There's no way to get around that. There's no way. I couldn't do it. I have 2 young children at home. My wife stays at home with our children. I can tell you what I would be doing. If we got hit with a $70,000 invoice, it would be pretty tough around our household. So I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm not going to waste your time by telling you about me. You guys can read the paper. If you'd like, you can ask me afterwards. I'm here to hear what you have to say today. And I appreciate the invitation to come down. I know Dianne had a role. There may have been others in organizing this meeting today. I thank you for that. And with that, I'd just like to hear what you have to say.
I want to ask you, the federal government has not helped us as far as grants at all. It seems to be all downloaded onto the Ontario government and the municipal government. I think the federal government needs to stand up too.
On that point, I'm a municipal councillor too in North Huron, and I see, what you're facing here in this community is something that I'm deeply afraid that we're going to face in North Huron very quickly as well. We have 5,000 people in our municipality in North Huron. We have hundreds and hundreds of kilometers of road, and it's not possible for local government to do this, and it's certainly not appropriate and not possible for individual members of the community to foot the bill. Well, I said I'm not going to comment on local issues, and I'm going to try my very best to stay away from that, particularly because there's a television camera here. But I'm just going to be honest. The 6-day thing, I'm a bit concerned about that, and I would intend to give a call, and I would ask everyone to note that I don't have any legal authority to do anything right now. But I would certainly, just as a curious citizen, I would intend to give a call and find out a little bit more about that timeline and where that came from and why, because it seems very tight, and I'm not sure what the rationale would be for something like that, so I would intend to make a call on that one. The other thing that I would like, and this is going to sound like a political rant, and it's not meant to be, it's just the difference. I mean, I make it a habit not to bash other parties. I went to school with the Conservative candidate. I think the NDP candidate's a nice guy, so it's not about that. But I do look at this. Everyone's aware that the GST was cut by 2 percentage points, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone feel a lot richer because of that? No. Right. That cut cost this country $12 billion every year. That's what the value of those 2 points were. $6 billion a point on the GST. Our infrastructure deficit in Canada is about $123 to $125 billion. And that's growing. Grows faster than the rate of inflation, I might add, but it's growing. If we'd have taken that money, instead of frittering it away, which is what the current government did with that, if we'd have taken that money, we could have rebuilt every road, every bridge, every sewer, every hospital, every school, every piece of publicly owned infrastructure in Canada in 10 years. We wouldn't be having this discussion. We wouldn't be. That's the bottom line of it. Yeah, you know what? I love paying less taxes. Everybody likes paying less taxes, and I think, in truth, we all like the notion of paying less taxes because, Mike Harris in Ontario cut income taxes by 30%, and it met, $5 or $6 on the average paycheck. That's not a substantive break. But having your roads all paid for, having your bridges all paid, those things, that's something substantial that you can measure. We wouldn't be having this discussion today if governments, and I'm not going to pick on any one party, if governments had have seen this and said, we're going to get serious about national infrastructure. Now, this time around, we've got a $70 billion program on the books. And that's all I'm going to say about that. It's a $70 billion program. You can look it up beyond that or ask me afterwards. But that's not going to help what we're talking about right now. Because $70 billion is still not $120 billion. And if we wait 5 years, $120 billion becomes $140 billion or whatever, and numbers that most of us can't even comprehend. So I think that you're right, the federal government, and I said this to Dianne the other night when she asked the question. The other candidates said, oh, well, we've done this and we've instituted that and we'll do this. And I said to her, we let you down. And I guess if I have to say anything, that's what I'm here to say today. I've never been in the federal government before. I'm not a member of parliament. But you know what? Your government has let you down. Anyone in this room that's got a bill for $9, $10, $20, $50,000, whatever your particular bill or set of bills are, we've let you down. And for that, I'm sorry. And all I'm going to promise you is that I will work very hard to try and see that trend is reversed or at least not repeated. I think that the municipalities right across the area are being placed in completely unacceptable situations. And they're passing that on, for better or for worse, to you as an unacceptable situation. And I'm not defending your council, and I'm not condemning your council. I'm just saying that they're being put, if you'll pardon me for saying it, into just one hell of a mess. And that's what we're looking at here today. You're seeing that right here. People shouldn't be expected to pay that kind of money. If we were serious about it, if governments were serious about it and put that that $12 billion a year onto national infrastructure, then we would not be having this discussion today. I think there's a question at the back there.
You, as a potential federal member of Parliament, your focus has probably changed in the last 3 weeks from the environment to the economy. You are also running in a riding which is exceedingly rich in agricultural resources. Does the Liberal Party, and do you personally, have any plans for the agricultural community and the direction that it is going with regard to farm management practices, farm subsidies, because regardless of whether we have bridges or sewers, we all have to eat?
A couple of things. You opened up by saying that my focus has probably changed. No, it hasn't. And I'm going to be blunt. When I went into this campaign, I said point blank, and I'm not making lists of 5 priorities or anything of that sort because I reject the notion, but our 3 main economic drivers in this riding are agriculture, tourism, and manufacturing. Those are our 3 main drivers, and every one of them is in trouble. The minute those things fall on hard times, that trickles down into the rest of it, and everything else falls out from that. We hear a lot of talk of environment and those things. Those are important things, but I actually think that environment can go hand in hand with economic stimulus. I don't think the two are separate issues. So I just, from the get-go, my focus, I'm not changing what I'm talking about. You know what, people in this riding, I spent the last number of years working in this riding on government issues. I spent the last 18 months traveling around as a candidate. People in this riding knew. They knew 18 months ago that the economy was the issue, and everything else falls from that, because if you don't have money, like if there's not money in the economy, if people can't afford to pay the bills, everything else is pointless. That's what it boils down to. But now, on the agricultural community, you use the word subsidies. I want to be blunt. That's something I reject. I don't like the word subsidies. When we build a new, and I'm not chastising, I'm just saying from my own personal perspective, when we build a road, do you call it a public works subsidy? When you put money into healthcare, do you call it a health subsidy? No. You call it a public works investment, or an investment into our medical system. So why is it that when we put money into agriculture, we call it an agricultural subsidy? Should it not be, we're making an investment into the second largest employer in the country, an investment into the food we eat and feed our children? So just from the get-go, I have a bit of that's kind of a different way of coming at the situation. Now, to answer your question directly, what are we proposing? We have a $15 billion platform. It's a lot of money, $15 billion. 9 of it goes to rural Canada. For the first time in many years, and it's one of the reasons that I feel very comfortable about running as a Liberal, I actually see a party that's taken us into consideration. Not as a footnote, not as a passing, beautiful picture on the cover where they have somebody walking through a wheat field. No, but as somebody that actually is paying attention to what we're thinking about, and knowing that we matter. The rural economy, it's amazing. If you go back over history, anytime there's been a recession, we get warned. About 2 years earlier, we get warned because the rural economy falters. And the minute the rural economy falters, so goes the rest of the national economy. And economists can ignore it and turn their heads and thumb their nose at us all they want, but it's a fact. We've proposed $9 billion out of a $15 billion program to come into rural Canada. We've got specific measures that are going into agriculture. For example, on the investment side into agriculture, $1 billion right off the top, including something called the Risk Management Program, which is an agricultural program that was actually designed by farmers. The Conservatives in this case have said they don't support it. Of course, the Conservatives also said in the last go-around that they would eliminate the CASE program. Well, they eliminated the name of the CASE program. They renamed it Agri-Stability, and then they made some changes to it that, as just one example, there are 16,000 beef farmers in Canada. Less than 1,000 of them will qualify under the CASE program today because of something they've instituted called a viability test. Less than 1,000 of them will qualify for even 1 penny. We need to change that. That's where risk management, $564 million for regional flexibility programs in Ontario, all of those kinds of things. That's where we're coming from. We think, you know what? Farmers are the experts. Governments aren't the experts. Farmers are the experts. So let's let them design some of the programming. The risk management program is a perfect example of that. And we've got, as I said, out of $15 billion, $9 billion is going into rural Canada in general. And of that, we're putting in, there's $1 billion in direct investments into agriculture itself. So did I answer your question on that?
Thank you.
And you know what, just to be clear, if I don't answer your question, you need to tell me that. Okay, don't let me away with it. I managed campaigns for a little while and I wouldn't let me away with it, so that's what I would say.
Would somebody else like to tell us?
For the seniors? Okay, well, I'm glad you asked that. Couple of things. Anybody in here pay taxes? Of course you do. First and foremost, we're proposing a 10% tax cut. Everybody that pays taxes, 10% cut right off the top. In the second bracket, an additional 5%, and in the third bracket, an additional 4%. So that's 10 plus 5 plus 4. Any place else in the world, you'd say 19%, but it doesn't quite work that way in taxes, and I don't want to give you the wrong impression. So that would, right off the bat, help to reduce the tax burden. Now, I don't know your income, but I know mine. So I'll give you my numbers. Has anyone heard of the Green Shift document? And everybody thinks it's a carbon tax and it's going to hurt? Well, you know, the media has played that out as something, the carbon tax. It's a lot more than that. There's a carbon tax component, which I'm very happy to talk about. But the Green Shift document also announced a whole range of other things that the national media is not covering. For example, if you're a senior getting the guaranteed income supplement, there's an extra $600 for a single senior and $800 for a couple. On top of that, there's a rural tax credit that all you have to do to get is live here. That's it. And file your paperwork, file your taxes. And a number of other things. And in my household, all of these things combined, and this doesn't count the 10%, 5%, 4% tax cut. Everything else combined, coming back to my house, is $2,200 a year. $2,200. Now, let's talk about the carbon tax, because you can't talk about one without talking about the other, and I'm not hiding from it. I heat my house with natural gas. Does anyone here use natural gas? Mm-hmm. Okay. So the average household heating with natural gas will experience an increase in your bill because of the carbon tax by $207 a year. Okay, that's what it means, $207 a year. In my household, and I can't give you your numbers right now because I don't know your income and your situation, but in my household, I'm getting offsets, which I shouldn't call them offsets. It's money. I'm getting money back to the tune of $2,200 a year. I'm sorry? I didn't hear that.
Why would you get money back?
Because that's what the carbon tax, as the media calls it, the green shift is, we would rather it be called because it's more accurate of what it is a shift. What we're doing is we're taking the taxes off of you, off of the average working person, off of the average senior, off of the average citizen, just the average regular person. And we're taking those taxes and placing them on to the largest corporations. To the largest corporation. You know, there are 4 companies. And the next question you should ask me is, how are we going to pay for that? Like, you know, what is this going to do? Okay, if I could be so presumptuous to tell you what the next question should be. But right now, there are 4 major oil companies in Canada. They're working in the tar sands and taking the oil out and causing a horrible mess environmentally speaking, but they're making a lot of money when they're doing it. Their profits have increased by 25% over last year. So in 1 year, their profits have went up about 25%. We think they should pay for their own bag tag. Do you pay for bag tags here? Mm-hmm. Right. Does your neighbor buy your bag tag? Like if you want to take a bag of garbage out, do you slip over to the neighbors and say, hey, Hank, I got to put some garbage out. Can I have a bag tag? No, you pay for your own bag tag. But you know what? When it comes to environmental programming from the federal government, you pay for your neighbor's bag tag. Not only do you pay the high prices at the gas pumps, but you also pay, which gives them the 25% profit, but you also pay for them to clean up, or for the government to clean up their mess. The Harper government just announced a $1.2 billion tax credit to those companies. $1.2 billion. Do you want to guess who pays for that? Even though their profits have gone up 25%, you and I are going to pay for that. We think that should be reversed. Why should they be getting a tax credit for that? And let them pay a higher share of the taxes. And give the average working person a bit of a break. Right now, I'll tell you an example. One time, and here I am on television saying it, but on one time, I got a raise. I guess somebody thought I did a great job and they gave me a raise. Now, it wasn't a big raise. It was going to be about $2 or $3 a paycheck, but whatever, it was the principle of it. It wasn't a lot of money and I just appreciated it was being done. But you know, I got my paycheck and it was $4 less after my raise than it was before my raise. Because what it did is it bumped me into the next tax bracket, and down I went. So essentially, I did a good job. My employer thought it was worth rewarding me. And my federal government thought, well, isn't that great? You did a good job. Bang. We'll punish you. And that's the way our tax system has worked since it was brought about. You make more money, you pay more tax. You put a little money away, you save your money, you make a little bit on your investment, you pay more tax. We think it's time that that starts to be reversed. I mean, we can't do it overnight, but the green shift is saying that that needs to be shifted. The taxes need to be shifted from labor and income, which is the entire premise of our tax system now, onto pollution. And I'll tell you something, companies are funny. Anyone here a small business? I know you are. Anybody else a small business person? A farmer? Well, that's the first time nobody's ever said yes to that question. Okay, well, if you were a small, everybody's the same principle. If the government came to your home right now and said, if you would do A, B, and C, we'll let you pay 10% less tax, would you think about doing it? You wouldn't? You wouldn't do anything less to pay less tax? All right, well, I would.
I would.
If somebody came to me and said if I planted 50 trees, they'd give me $50 off my taxes, I'd plant 50 trees.
You're screwed me in.
Well, we can be cynical. I'm gonna choose to not be as cynical, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but well, in any event, what it's about is to say that if you do something responsible, we'll lower your taxes on the corporate side, the large corporations. And it's something as simple as planting crops that sequester carbon. If an oil company plants 1,000 acres of trees, we're proposing that they get tax credits for that. I should also point out that when I use the word offsets, which is the money coming back into our household, the thing I often hear is, well, I don't pay any taxes, I'm a senior on a fixed income, whatever, I don't pay taxes, so I'm not going to get the money back. Wrong. The intention of the program, all the money coming back into your home, the intention of that is to get it into your hands, so all of the tax credits are something called fully refundable, which means you get it whether you pay tax or not. The only thing you have to do is fill out your taxes as per normal. If it's a zero, you don't make any money. If it's whatever, it doesn't matter. The money still comes back. And you can go online, if anyone goes online, or you can call our office and we'll do it for you, and you can see specifically what your tax offsets will be. So not everyone gets $2,200. Some people get more, some people get less. The average in this riding, I think, is $2,800. So that's putting money back into your hands so that you can help to pay for some of these things. In addition, we've also announced a program in order to help people to reduce the energy they use. Because governments don't own the oil. So governments in Canada don't own the oil. So governments can't say, you must charge at the pumps only this much money. We can't do that. But what we can do is get the average citizen to use less energy. So if we put money into your hands to help replace windows or upgrade your heating systems, and I'm not talking about the one that the Conservatives come up with where you've got to pay some guy $500 to come to your house to evaluate it and then pay him again to come back and you get $50 out of the program. My grandfather put in $6,000 worth of windows. $6,000. And he paid the guy to come out, do the home audit, and he went, and Grandpa put in the windows, paid the guy to come back and reevaluate, and he got $189 for that.
What are you doing for seniors? Nothing. You're talking about this tax credit and that. Well, they need the money now.
Yes.
Because most of them that get their old age pension haven't got enough to keep themselves in a nursing home.
And I said,
and then they force them, they want them to stay in their homes, but they're forced out because they can't look after it. Because they don't have the people to go into that, eh? So what are you going to do about it then? That's what I want to know. I ain't worried about this tax and tax. That's all you do. You're going to tax this, save and save that. Well, it's not helping anybody. It's costing us money. Some can get it and some can't. Not everybody gets taxed.
Seniors, many seniors get guaranteed income supplement. We're proposing an increase in the guaranteed income supplement immediately. For a couple, an extra $800 is a serious amount of money. The $2,200 that comes into my household goes in, those amounts go into everybody's household under what we're proposing. Whether you're a senior, whether you're a young family, whether you're a working man, woman, whatever, you get that money. Those are serious amounts of money. The old age security pension right now, I think is about $600 a month. plus your guaranteed income supplement if you're fortunate enough to get it, if you qualify, which is another matter. The thresholds are way too low on stuff like that. Yeah, they are. I mean, when you're getting, you get somebody that's getting a Canada pension plan of, I'm just picking a number, say $400 a month or $500 a month, and then an old age security pension of $600 a month, and in some cases they don't qualify for the guaranteed income supplement. It's absurd. So the thresholds are too high. That's what I'm telling you. And on top of that, the guaranteed income supplement amount that seniors are expected to live on is grossly low. That's why we're proposing to change those things. You're asking me directly, what are we doing for seniors? Those are two measures right there that we're proposing for seniors. I was invited to come here to listen, and I'm trying to do that. You're asking me questions, I'm trying to give you my honest answer. Now, when the Liberals were last in government, there was a $13 billion surplus. That was the legacy that the Liberals left. In addition, the Liberals brought about, you're asking on the infrastructure side of things, what did we do? We're the ones that instituted taking a portion of the gas tax, and we gave it to the municipalities in order to rebuild infrastructure. Now, am I going to tell you here today that it was the way of solving all the problems? No. It was a start. And for 2 years, we've walked backwards now on that front. We've not moved forward. We had a $13 billion surplus. Why wasn't it being used? This gentleman here talks about seniors. Why wasn't it used to help seniors? Why wasn't it used to help rebuild infrastructure? So you're not, this lady here has a $60,000 or $70,000 debt because of that. Those things why wasn't that $13 billion surplus used for those things?
Perhaps we could have some of the other people comment on their situation, tell their story.
We did that. We put $25,000 in our home, or in my son's home, and we got back $750. That was it. New furnace, new windows, blowing in insulation, the whole 9 yards, new roof, everything. That's all we got back after we paid to have the blower test in and out. So in that regard, you were right.
Obviously, it's not consistent then. Right.
No, is the person, when I hear your story, did the person who do our blower test, did he do it wrong? The infrastructure money that you are going to have, will any of that come back to us? To Crediton and Centralia? I mean, the new places will get their grant money, but what about us? Is there any way that we are going to get that? Because the municipality won't go after it, of course. They said they would exhaust all avenues of funding. We honestly don't trust them anymore. We have tried the ombudsman, which he can't do anything for us. So, can we now say, if you're elected, you're in, will that money trickle down to the people who have suffered? Or just the new ones starting out?
I think what we need to do is to start by finding out exactly what projects need to be done most urgently. I mean, we have a list of, anytime you ask municipalities what they want to do, the list will be as long as your arm. I mean, that's the nature. As a municipal councillor, that's the nature of the beast. I think what we need to do is to start, and I've said this at our council, I've kind of tried to press this, instead of doing it, infrastructure funding right now is allocated on a per capita basis, which puts communities like this one at a disadvantage with other communities. That's the way it works. And that's not right. I think these things should be delivered on a needs basis. Mm-hmm. And I think the first thing we need to do locally here, and it's something that a local member could do in concert with the communities, is find out what are the priorities. And I don't mean what are the municipal priorities, what are the federal priorities, what are the priorities in the area. Like, if we're deciding between a community that wants to install water meters, I mean, in my own home community, we would really like to put in water meters someday. But it's going to cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So we understand that, look, at that unfortunately has to move to the back burner because, these people that need a sewer, they have to come first. So we need, the thing that the local member could do is to try and find out and get some kind of an inventory of where we stand. What are the most urgent projects that need attention, regardless of the size of the community or whether it's rural or urban in the Huron-Bruce sense of urban. That would be the first step in figuring out where we direct the money, is to figure out what we have. If you ask me right now, what are the 25 most important projects in Huron-Bruce as far as needs, I can't answer that because there's no inventory of that. We don't know. Every municipality has a different direction on that. Every council, they are the ones right now that decide where the priorities exist. And I mean, again, I'm not going to comment on Blue Water Council or anybody else, but you're saying you disagree with them. They're saying these are the priorities. I think what we need to do is to start finding out where exactly the money should go so it can be targeted more appropriately. And with the list of what should be done, there has to be some costing. Like, we have to know what kind of money are we talking, and we don't have that right now. It's not there.
Our project here has been completed. We were told, okay, once the shovel goes in the ground, that's it, no more funds, no more grants, nothing. But our project is completed. Our municipal council has said, here's the invoice, we're done. If your government gets in, as Sue is asking, will we, the people of Crediton and Centralia, get some kind of funding? With the project completed, with the bill given to us, will we get help?
The short answer is I can't answer you right now, because I'm going to have to find out how the thing is structured. I mean, if you've bought into I don't want to say bought in, whatever the term is, if you're on the debenture system, I would need to know how it's been structured and who's the holder of the debenture before I can tell you, because even if the federal government did come in and drop in the money into the community, are you allowed to pay that amount off? No, but you're not. I understand that. They've put restrictions in place on that front, but I'm going to have to do a little homework on that one to answer your question effectively. But I would like to, if before I leave, could you give me your name and address or phone number or something, and I can try and find out. But I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I want to give you a real answer, but until I find this out, and I'm happy to share. Maybe everybody wants the answer. I don't know. If not, I'm happy to give it to you. But let me find out a little bit more about the actual structure of the debentures and so on, because I think that's relevant for the answer. The actual first thing we have to do is to figure out, okay, what are the 20 projects of greatest need? And then actually we can start to lobby for infrastructure funding for those communities. And instead of saying it has to go to this community or that community, we can lobby for projects. You know, we can say the project, the water project in Hensel or the sewers in Centralia or whatever it happens to be, rather than saying the municipality of such and such requires money. So the first thing that I would hope to do is to actually build the list of what needs to be done most urgently and how much money we're talking. Because it's not just good enough to know what needs to be done. We need to know how much money we're going to have to lay out. Because nobody can answer that question right now. That's at least not on a larger scale. I'm sure if we called up every municipality, they would have their list of projects of greatest need. I know we do in North Huron. But I think actually the first thing we need to do is to get the list and to know what it is we're lobbying for, because if we don't know that part, we can't possibly get the money. It's that simple.
The federal and provincial governments seem to be mandating, well, you need this, you need that, you need this, you need that. And then they're just dropping it right there. After that, the municipality is mandated to do this and that, and then they're mandated to put the price of the project on the ratepayers. Yeah. Is it not about time that the federal, provincial, municipal, whoever is responsible, to stop mandating that everybody, get sewers, get water, get this, get that, until there is funding in place? They cannot continue to put the ratepayer in jeopardy, in financial jeopardy, and that's where Crediton and Centralia are right now. In answer to your question, if you wanted to sell your property, right now you either have to drop it, the price of it, so low that you make nothing on it, or you can sit on it, because you will not sell it at a decent real estate price, plus the debenture on top of that. It is totally impossible to sell any property. And that's that situation. But is it not time for somebody to slow down?
Yeah. My short answer on that is the same answer I've given on the questions come up with regards to agriculture over the last little while. Governments are really great about requiring farmers to implement all these new regulations and so on. They say on farm you must have a nutrient management law or plan, you must have all of these environmental regulations in place, and guess who gets to pay for it? The farmer. I would say if there's a general societal good, then society needs to pay for it. That's the way it should work. And I would say the same for infrastructure. There's a societal good to building infrastructure or to renewing the infrastructure we have. So why doesn't society help to cover the costs? The last time I checked, we didn't live in a country where it mattered. You live in an urban center with a large population, so you should get the most attention from government. I don't want to live in a place like that. I think that our smallest rural communities are the soul of the country. I mean, they're the places that the food comes from. They're the places that all have very interesting and kind of unique situations that need to be preserved. I don't think we want everybody in Canada to live in the 6 largest cities of the country. That's not the way that we should be moving. And every time a government, federal, provincial, and I'll say it right now, this is not something exclusive to the Conservatives. The Liberals did it when they were in power too. We downloaded responsibilities. Everybody downloads. And the lower tier governments, and I say this as a lower tier government representative, we're at the breaking point and maybe past it a little bit. So that has to stop. If there's going to be stuff coming down from above saying that you must do this or you must do that, then it needs to have dollars attached to it. And there needs to be some kind of long-term strategy. You cannot look, the minute you build a new piece of infrastructure or rebuild a piece of infrastructure so it's new again, there should be a costing plan in place immediately to replace it the next time around. Because otherwise all we're doing is passing that off to our children. Because every kilometer of new road you put in will need redone someday. Every kilometer of sewer you put in will need redone someday. I mean, my goodness, just think about it. If you're into a 20, 25-year debenture, by the time you got it paid, you're just going to get ready to start all over again.
Yes.
And that's no way, you can't manage like that. If you're in business, when you buy a new asset for your business, you've got to start thinking about, how am I going to pay for this and what happens when it breaks down again? So I think that the same strategy should be implemented, whether it be from the federal, provincial, or lower tier governments, or all three. That every time something new is built, there needs to be a plan in place with dollars attached to rebuild it next time.
A couple of points, I don't want to debate it, I just want to make them. If we share the cost of sewers municipally wide, is the growing trend then to share them provincially, share them nationally, share them internationally? You're talking a communist government. That's point number one. Point number two, yes, I chose to live in this community. I enjoy living in this community. For one reason, it is a small community and I enjoy it. However, world trends are moving towards an urban lifestyle because it is more economically feasible. You can service more people for less money per capita. You have to build up. The minute you put a lot in the country, that has to be serviced with electricity. It has to be serviced with water, which punctures an aquifer, leaving it open for any possible pollution. And you have to service that road in all 4 seasons in this country, which costs money. You also, because you have to have a septic system, you have to have a large enough lot, and that lot then takes valuable land out of agricultural use, and the world is moving into a food shortage. So those are 2, I think, important points where you have been short-sighted in some of your answers.
I'm not sure that I agree with the comment that suggesting that a rural community should have help with its basic infrastructure will lead to an eventual communist-style regime. But I would agree. I would agree you are. And again, I understand the point. I just, at some point, I think governments have a responsibility to become involved. I'm not suggesting for a moment that we should share all of the resources and costs internationally and across the globe, but I do think that if everybody leaves the rural areas, then there's something missing. Like we can't, they're not going to grow our food on Bloor Street.
No, but do you think that the residents of Centralia and Crediton are going to help Hensel put their water system in? I'm sure if you look for a lineup, you'd be waiting a long time.
If you look back to when many of these infrastructure services were put in initially, they were put in with federal and provincial assistance. Mm-hmm. They were put in. And that's exactly my point, is they were put in on the larger scale with, at that point, I believe, for anyone that was in municipal government at the time, it was, I believe, a reverse sliding scale that they used to help communities to put those things in.
Was our councillors, Tom Tomes, Jimmy Dietrich, invited to this meeting today that you had here to show up or no?
No.
Were they notified? Were they notified?
No.
Why not? They should have been here for us. They're the ones that represent Centralia in this area here. Why weren't they notified to be here to even be asked?
This meeting is for the people.
Yeah, but they're supposed to be for us, I thought. That's what we got them voted in for, isn't it?
And have you been happy with what they've done for you so far?
People just ain't talking to them, they say. So I'm just going what I hear, saying. That's why I'm asking, why weren't they invited even to show up so they can give their opinion? Because when they go to council, they don't say a word. They're scared of Oak, our mayor. If they say something, they get in trouble.
But what I would like to say is that when I was challenged as a candidate to come out. I wanted to take the opportunity, and I would hope that you'll be having some opportunity to meet with other candidates from other parties, and you should give them the same grilling. And again, I'm here because I think it's important to be here. I actually think that elections, you should really be talking about what we're talking about here. And you know what? We can have a knockdown, drag-out fight all you like, and that's what this is about. That's what an election's supposed to be about, is thrashing out those ideas. So I do want to thank you. I want to thank everyone involved with organizing this and coming out. And I appreciate the feedback. And I will get back to you. Actually, the lady has left now. I will get back to you on the question because I need to find out some of the structures of how this is all laid out. And other than that, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be here today.
And thank you very much for coming.
Well, folks, we've been invited to Crediton by constituents of this area, certainly this part of the riding, to cover this meeting today. Greg, you've been invited to come and talk to these people down here, and I covered the meeting. I learned some of the questions and some of the issues, local issues here. There's some valid points raised here, obviously a hurting community. And you've been put into sort of a position that most candidates would not care to be put into. That's mighty gutsy of you to do this, but I think it's somewhat noble to, and I'll recognize this, the fact that you're opening yourself up to a ridicule and to all these things. There's a lot of emotion here, and you've dealt with it, and yet you bring some issues forward into forelight, and people by and large have been satisfied with answers you've given. You're also committing to some of the answers you did not have, that you will get back to them and certainly come through with that. However, we've been following the campaign, at least of the three top runners in this riding, and this was quite something today.
Well, first off, Dan, all of the candidates were invited. At an all-candidates meeting, one of the residents here basically challenged us and said, come and see us and let us tell you what the problems we're facing here in this community.
That's what we were told.
Right. So, I mean, I came. I would hope that the other candidates would decide to come, although I don't think that's the indication at this point. But having said that, I came here today. There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of anger in this community, and I can certainly understand it. I didn't come here today to talk about platforms and to make lofty promises. I came here to listen. I came here to hear what the problems are in this community. I think that that's what a campaign should be about. Instead of talking about the issues that nobody really cares about, let's get down to the brass tacks here and let's actually talk about the issues that are important to the voters in this riding. And this was a perfect example today of that kind of approach. And I think until we as those running for office are prepared to get serious and actually meet in this forum, the election is losing its focus. And I think that this is a way of bringing the focus back to where it belongs, which is the people in this riding. And yeah, you know, I came here today, I expected there was going to be angry people in the room. I would be angry too if I were in this situation. Not passing judgment on anything the other levels of government have done, local council, any of those things. I'm simply here to talk to people, to listen to people, and to give some thoughts on what I believe that the federal level of government can do to help, one, prevent this kind of thing from happening, and two, to fix the problem that's here right now.
Mm-hmm. The truth is, though, when you share issues with the entire country, and there's 33 million of us in this country, if we all shared the burden and did the things properly, there would not be failures such as we have in these little hamlets, little communities. I know government is trying to pay attention to the rural Canada, and that has been on the table for some time now, but the formula is going to have to be found that satisfy urbanites and rural Canada, the world, so to find a balance, if you will, be it in infrastructures, be it in all these things that have been raised here today, things would be a whole lot easier if there is that common sense revolution applied that balances some equality in a land, certainly to do with infrastructure and those way of life that we are so used to in Canada.
Yeah. Well, a number of years ago, back in the mid-1990s, Mike Harris used the term common sense revolution, and it basically left rural Canada, or rural Ontario in that case, hanging in the balance. For too long, I mean, I have nothing against our cousins in urban Canada, but at the same time, my job is to work for the folks here in rural Canada. I think that rural Canada has a great deal to offer. I think that certainly the Harper government has failed miserably in the last couple of years in addressing the problems here in rural Canada. I mean, our major problems affect agriculture, the tourist industry, the manufacturing sector, basic infrastructure in our smallest communities. On each of those fronts, I would say that the Harper government has failed miserably. And I think you want to hear the solutions, you don't have to go to Ottawa to do that. The solutions are right here. It's what we talked about today. The residents here know what needs to be done. We just need to have someone who will listen. And I'd like to believe that I can be that person, carry those messages back to Ottawa, and through my years of experience in working in the halls in Ottawa, trying to get things done and effectively getting things done, I would like to think that I could carry that message back and try and make a real difference for these communities. Now, I said here openly today, nobody would leave here today with their problem solved. But I think what we talked about today is a thorough thrashing of the problem and some ideas that should be explored further in order to try and prevent this kind of thing from ever happening again.
I've just learned from someone here, you are yet going to Exeter to high school?
Yeah.
Is it South Huron High School that you will be at?
Yes, I believe we're going to South Huron High School. I'm going to speak to a civics class, or two civics classes, a little later this afternoon.
I'm also looking forward to sitting down with at least the three candidates to really rehash some of the latest agenda that had been put forward by the federal leaders, folks. I want to know how our candidates feel about that agenda, if you will, that has been so talked about and so popular in the news lately, of the big three. Certainly, Greg, I hereby invite you with Ben and the NDP candidate as well, at least the three, where we could sit around a table and debate some of these issues we learned about today. Thank you for talking to me today.
Thanks for that report.